The mirror showed everything Captain Jade Phoenix hated about formal occasions. Her navy dress uniform clung to her athletic frame like armor, every metal and ribbon positioned with military precision. The fabric felt suffocating against her. Bronzed skin, earned from years working in the engine rooms of colony ships before her promotion to diplomatic corps. She ran her fingers through her auburn hair, now severely pinned back, according to regulation, hiding the natural waves that usually cascaded past her shoulders. Today's mission could determine whether humanity remained isolated in their corner of the galaxy or joined the vast network of civilizations that comprised the luminous consortium. 3 previous diplomatic attempts had failed spectacularly, leaving Earth's leaders desperate enough to send someone with Jade's unconventional background. The transport shuttle's artificial gravity felt different as they approached Crystal Nexus Station. Through the viewport, the structure looked more like a living organism than traditional architecture. Crystalline spires twisted upward and impossible. Spirals, their surfaces pulsing with soft bioluminescent patterns that seemed to respond to some cosmic rhythm. The sight made Jade's heart race with anticipation and nervousness. "Captain Phoenix, we're receiving docking clearance from the station," announced Pilot Officer Reeves, his voice tight with the same tension everyone felt. This wasn't just another mission. It was humanity's last chance at galactic acceptance. "Thank you, Reeves. Maintain communication protocols, and remember, we're guests here." Jade straightened her uniform jacket, feeling the weight of Earth's hopes settling on her shoulders like lead. The docking bay welcomed them with an atmosphere that immediately set Jade on edge. The air itself seemed alive, carrying scents of flowers that didn't exist on Earth, mixed with something that reminded her of lightning before a storm. The walls breathed with gentle luminescence, creating patterns that shifted and danced in response to their presence. Waiting for them stood 3 figures that redefined Jade's understanding of beauty. The aliens of the luminous consortium were tall and graceful, their skin appearing to be carved from living crystal that caught and refracted light in mesmerizing ways. But it was the woman in the center who stole Jade's breath entirely. Ambassador Cathara moved with fluid grace that made human motion seem clumsy by comparison. Her crystalline skin shifted through subtle hues of blue and silver, and when she turned toward the approaching humans, her eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. She wore what could barely be called clothing, flowing fabric, that seemed woven from starlight itself, leaving little to imagination while maintaining an elegance that transcended mere fashion. "Welcome, representatives of Earth," Cathara spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Jade's chest. "I am Ambassador Cathara, speaker for the Luminous Consortium. We are pleased you have come so far to meet with us." Step forward, fighting to maintain professional composure despite the way Kithara's presence seemed to fill the entire bay. "Thank you, Ambassador Kithara. I am Captain Jade Phoenix, representing the United Earth Federation. We're honored by this opportunity." The formal words felt hollow the moment they left her lips. Around Cathara, the other consortium representatives shifted, their crystalline skin displaying what Jade somehow understood were expressions of disappointment. The colors grew cooler, more distant. Chancellor Vex, a tall male with angular features, carved from what appeared to be black crystal shot through with veins of gold, stepped forward. His presence radiated authority and barely concealed skepticism. "Captain Phoenix, your reputation precedes you. We have studied the records of previous human diplomatic attempts. They all followed similar patterns of failure. This time will be different," Jade replied, her military training keeping her voice steady despite the growing tension. "We've learned from past mistakes. Have you?" The third alien, introduced as Healer Noxus, seemed ancient despite the ageless quality of their species. Their skin held the deep purples and greens of old growth, with wisdom that felt heavy in the air around them. "Your emotional resonance speaks of barriers, Captain Phoenix. How can we trust a species that hides their true feelings behind walls of protocol and pretense?" The question hit harder than any physical blow. Jade felt heat rising in her cheeks, her carefully maintained composure beginning to crack. Around her, she could sense her small diplomatic team growing nervous. their own barriers rising in response to the aliens' penetrating observation. Kythera moved closer, and Jade caught her breath at the sight of genuine concern flickering across those mesmerizing features. The ambassador's skin had shifted to softer hues of lavender and rose, colors that somehow conveyed empathy and curiosity. "We communicate through emotional transparency, Captain Phoenix. Your formal attire and rigid posture tell us you come in the armor of war to speak of peace. How can we know your heart when you wrap it so completely in the symbols of conflict? This uniform represents honor, service, and humanity's finest traditions," Jade protested. But even as she spoke, she could feel the inadequacy of her words. The crystalline beings around her seemed to see through every defense, every carefully constructed professional facade. "Your emotional signature contradicts your spoken words," Chancellor Vex observed, his golden veins pulsing with what appeared to be mild amusement mixed with growing irritation. "We sense fear, loneliness, and a desperate need for acceptance. Yet you present yourself as a warrior coming to negotiate. The contradiction is jarring." The chamber fell silent except for the gentle humming of the station's living systems. Jade felt the weight of multiple gazes upon her, alien eyes that perceived spectrums of emotion she couldn't begin to hide. The first time in her military career, her uniform felt less like protection and more like a prison. She thought of Earth, hanging in the darkness of space, isolated and vulnerable. She thought of the colony ships she'd helped build and repair, carrying human hopes to distant worlds where they remained alone among the stars. She thought of the children who would inherit that loneliness if she failed here today. "You're right," she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the charged atmosphere. The admission surprised even her. This uniform, these protocols, they're everything I was trained to be. Disciplined, controlled, professional. Her hands moved to the golden buttons of her dress jacket, fingers trembling slightly as she began. "To unfasten them, Captain." The sharp voice belonged to her aide, Lieutenant Torres, whose eyes had gone wide with shock. "The protocols clearly state that the protocols are failing." Jade interrupted, her jacket sliding from her shoulders to reveal the simple white blouse beneath. The absence of military formality felt both terrifying and liberating. "Want to know my heart, Ambassador Kythera? I'm terrified. Terrified that humanity will remain alone in the universe because we're too proud, too afraid to show who we really are beneath all this ceremony." The transformation in the chamber was immediate and profound. Every consortium representative's crystalline skin exploded into brilliant cascades of color. Shocked silvers gave way to curious golds, then warm ambers and encouraging greens. Musical tones that filled the air shifted from discordant to harmonious, like a cosmic orchestra finding its rhythm. Kythera stepped closer, close enough that Jade could feel the warmth radiating from her crystalline skin. When she spoke, her voice carried new frequencies that seemed to vibrate directly into Jade's soul. "Now we see you, Captain Phoenix. The being beneath the shell speaks of genuine feeling, of courage that goes deeper than any uniform or medal." "But is it enough?" Jade asked, vulnerability making her voice smaller than she'd ever allowed it to be. "Can one moment of honesty overcome centuries of human stubbornness and fear?" The answer came not in words, but in action. Kythera reached out with movements that seemed to flow like liquid light, her fingers barely brushing against Jade's exposed forearm. The contact sent electricity racing through every nerve, a connection that transcended mere physical touch. Through that contact, Jade felt something impossible, the echo of Kythera's own emotions, Ambassador's own fears and hopes, and the growing warmth of something that felt remarkably like attraction. "Honesty is the foundation," Kythera whispered, her skin now glowing with soft pinks and golds that made her look like a living sunrise. "But connection requires more than a single moment of vulnerability. It requires trust, understanding, and the courage to remain open, even when it frightens you." Chancellor Vex watched this exchange with growing fascination, its own colors shifting to intrigued purples shot through with respect. The human shows promise, but one individual cannot speak for an entire species. How do we know this transformation is genuine and not merely another form of diplomatic manipulation? Jade felt Kythera's fingers tighten slightly on her arm, the gesture of support that sent warmth flooding through her entire body. The ambassador's next words would change everything. Then perhaps Cathara said, her melodious voice carrying undertones of decision and desire, "It is time to test the depth of this new honesty. Captain Phoenix, are you prepared to participate in a resonance bonding that will allow our species to share not just words and gestures, but actual emotions and memories? There can be no deception, no hidden agendas, only truth in its purest form." The offer hung in the crystalline air like a challenge and an invitation combined. Jade looked into Kithra's eyes, seeing depths of intelligence, compassion, and something else that made her pulse quicken. Whatever was beginning between them transcended mere diplomacy. This was about connection on the most fundamental level possible. "What are the risks?" she asked, though her heart had already made the decision. Healer Noxus stepped forward, their ancient presence radiating both wisdom and concern. "For a human, the psychological integration could be overwhelming. You might lose aspects of your individual identity, okay? And for a consortium member, intimate bonding with an alien consciousness could sever their connection to our collective awareness. The risk is significant for both participants." Jade felt a moment of doubt. But then she looked at Cathara again and saw her own uncertainty reflected in those galactic eyes. The ambassador was risking just as much, perhaps more. The realization was both humbling and exciting. "I accept," Jade said, her voice growing stronger with conviction. "If this is what it takes to bridge the gap between our species, then I'm willing to try." Cathora's skin erupted in brilliant cascades of joy and anticipation, colors so vibrant they seemed to sing. "Then let us begin something the galaxy has never seen before, Captain Phoenix. Let us discover what happens when two hearts speak louder than words." The resonance chamber existed in the heart of Crystal Nexus. It's a sacred space where the station's living systems pulsed with their strongest energy. Jade followed Cathara through corridors that seemed to breathe around them, walls of organic crystal that responded to their emotions with cascading patterns of light. The deeper they went, the more intense the connection between them became. "Are you certain about this, Captain?" Chancellor Vex asked as they walked, his crystalline form radiating concern mixed with curiosity. The last successful resonance bonding between different species occurred over 3 centuries ago. The participants were forever changed. Jade glanced at Cathara, whose skin had settled into soft hues of anticipation and nervous excitement. The ambassador's beauty was breathtaking in the chamber's ethereal light, her form seeming to glow from within. "Sometimes change is exactly what we need," Jade replied, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. The chamber itself took Jade's breath away. Crystalline formations jutted from floor and ceiling like frozen lightning, creating a space that felt both ancient and alive. At the center lay 2 curved platforms that seemed grown rather than built, their surfaces warm and inviting, despite being made of what appeared to be living stone. Healer Noxus moved with the careful grace of ages, preparing the chamber with movements that looked more like a dance than a ceremony. Their skin displayed deep purples and blues that spoke of profound wisdom and gentle power. "The bonding will require complete emotional openness from both participants," they explained, their voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Jade's bones. "You must be willing to share not just thoughts, but the deepest parts of your souls." Dara approached Jade slowly, her movements fluid and hypnotic. When she spoke, her voice carried new undertones that made Jade's pulse quicken. "Jade Phoenix, before we begin, you should know that this ceremony goes beyond mere diplomatic necessity. I find myself drawn to you in ways that transcend my duties to the consortium." The admission hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Jade felt heat flooding her cheeks, a warmth that had nothing to do with the chamber's energy, and everything to do with the way Cathira's eyes seemed to see straight through to her heart. "I feel it too," she whispered. "This connection between us, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced." Chancellor Vex observed their interaction with growing fascination. "The emotional resonance is already beginning," he noted, his golden veins pulsing with what Jade was learning to recognize as approval. Perhaps the cosmic currents have aligned for this moment. Healer Noxus gestured toward the curved platforms. The ceremony requires physical proximity and emotional vulnerability. You must lie facing each other, allowing your bioelectric fields to merge. The process will be intense and intimate. Jade's heart hammered as she approached her platform, the living stone warm against her skin, even through her clothing. Moved to the adjacent surface with liquid grace, her form arranging itself in a position that was both elegant and deeply alluring. The ambassador's clothing seemed to flow and shift, becoming even more minimal, as the ceremony demanded greater skin contact for proper energy transfer. "Are you ready, beautiful human?" Cathera asked, using an endearment that sent shivers down Jade's spine. The ambassador's skin had begun to glow more brightly, patterns of rose and gold dancing across her crystalline surface. "As ready as anyone can be for something impossible," Jade replied, lying down on her side to face Cathara. The platforms drew them closer together until they were mere inches apart, close enough that Jade could feel the warmth radiating from Kithra's body. Healer Noxus began to chant in harmonics that seemed to awaken the chamber itself. The crystalline formations began to pulse in rhythm with their words, creating a light show that was both beautiful and hypnotic. "Place your hands together, palm to palm," they instructed. "Let your bioelectric fields begin to merge." The moment their palms touched, Jade gasped. Energy coursed between them like liquid lightning, but instead of pain, it brought the most intense pleasure she'd ever experienced. Through their connected skin, she could feel Cathora's emotions as clearly as her own waves of excitement, curiosity, and growing desire that took her breath away. "I can feel your heartbeat," Cathera whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "Your emotions are like music I can hear with my entire being. You're so beautifully complex, Jade Phoenix." The connection deepened, and suddenly Jade was experiencing Kithra's memories as if they were her own. She saw the ambassador's childhood among the crystalline gardens of her homeworld, felt the loneliness of being chosen as a speaker, the weight of representing her entire species in diplomatic matters. But underneath it all was a yearning for connection that matched Jade's own. "You've been as alone as I have," Jade realized, her voice thick with emotion. "All this beauty, all this cosmic consciousness, but you've been isolated by your responsibilities." Their bond, Kithara, shared deeper memories. Jade experienced the ambassador's first sight of human transmissions reaching consortium space. The fascination with a species that seemed to love and fight with equal passion. She felt Kithra's secret desire to understand what it meant to choose individual connection over collective duty. "Your species intrigues us because you love so fiercely," Cathara explained, her skin now blazing with patterns of deep crimson and gold that spoke of passion awakening. "We have collective consciousness, shared purpose, but you humans create bonds that transcend logic and duty. I have always wondered what such love would feel like." The ceremony reached a new intensity as their bioelectric fields merged completely. Jade could no longer tell where her consciousness ended and Cathara's began. The sensation was overwhelming and intoxicating, like drowning in starlight, while simultaneously being reborn. Through their connection, she shared her own deepest memories. Her childhood on the colony ships, the wonder of seeing new worlds through viewports. The moment she decided to leave engineering for diplomacy because she believed humanity deserved a place among the stars. But more intimately, she shared her loneliness. The relationships that had never quite worked because no one understood her drive to reach beyond Earth's boundaries. "You gave up love for duty," Cathara observed, her mental voice caressing Jade's thoughts like silk. "Just as I did. But perhaps we can find both together." The chamber around them pulsed with increasing intensity, the crystalline formations responding to their merged energy. Healer Noxus watched with amazement as patterns of light began to flow between the platforms, creating a bridge of pure energy that connected the two women. "Impossible," Chancellor Vex breathed, his colors shifting to awestruck whites and golds. "The resonance is creating new patterns. They are not simply bonding, they are evolving." Jade felt the truth of his words in every cell of her body. Its connection with Cathara was changing her on a fundamental level, awakening abilities she'd never known she possessed. She could sense the emotions of everyone in the chamber, feel the living pulse of the station itself, and underneath it all, the vast network of consciousness that connected every member of the consortium. But more than that, she could feel Kithara's desire, raw and powerful, and directed entirely at her. The ambassador's attraction had grown beyond diplomatic interest into something that burned like a star being born. Jade, Kithara whispered, their mental connection now so complete that spoken words seemed unnecessary. I want to show you pleasures beyond anything your species has imagined. Will you let me? The question sent heat flooding through Jade's entire body. Through their bond, she could feel exactly what Kithara meant. The ways consortium physiology could create sensations that transcended mere physical touch. The ambassador's desire was infectious, awakening hungers Jade had suppressed for years in service of her career. Yes, she breathed, the word carrying all her pent-up longing and newfound trust. What followed transcended every boundary Jade had ever known. Kithara's touch became something beyond physical contact, sending waves of pleasure through their shared consciousness that left Jade trembling and gasping. The ambassador's crystalline skin seemed to sing against hers, creating harmonics that resonated in places she didn't even know could feel pleasure. Their lovemaking was as much mental as physical, emotions and sensations flowing between them like waves in an ocean of shared bliss. Jade experienced pleasure from Kithara's perspective, while simultaneously feeling her own responses amplified and reflected back through their bond. The sensation was so intense, it left her crying out in languages she didn't know she could speak. You are magnificent, Kithara whispered against her skin, her lips trailing fire along Jade's neck and shoulders. Your passion burns brighter than solar cores. I want to lose myself in you forever. The chamber itself seemed to respond to their union, crystalline formations pulsing in rhythm with their joined heartbeats. Healer Noxus watched with reverent amazement as the two lovers created light patterns that had never been seen before, their bonded consciousness generating new forms of beauty. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time seemed irrelevant in their shared ecstasy. They explored each other with a completeness that went beyond the merely physical, their souls intertwining as intimately as their bodies. Jade discovered that Kithara's crystalline skin could shift and change, becoming softer and more sensitive in response to touch. While the ambassador marveled at the complexity of human emotional responses, when they finally lay still in each other's arms, their consciousness still merged, but the intense energy somewhat calmed. Jade felt fundamentally changed. She was still herself, but expanded, connected to something vast and beautiful beyond. Imagination. What happens now? She asked, tracing patterns on Kithara's luminescent skin that responded to her touch with gentle glowing. Kithara's answer came through their mental link, warm with love and certainty. Now we show the galaxy what true connection looks like. We become the bridge between our peoples, Jade Phoenix. Together, we will teach both humans and consortium what it means to love across the stars. Chancellor Vex approached their platforms, his entire form radiating approval and wonder. The bonding is complete and beyond anything we imagined possible. You have created a new form of consciousness, one that celebrates both individual passion and collective harmony. As they slowly separated, still maintaining their deep connection, Jade felt the truth of those words. She and Kithara had become something new, a loving partnership that could serve as a template for the future of galactic civilization. The universe suddenly felt less cold and vast, filled instead with infinite possibilities for connection and understanding. Their love had become the key to humanity's future among the stars. 3 months after the resonance bonding, Crystal Nexus had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The station now served as the first interspecies harmony center, where beings from across the galaxy came to learn the art of deep connection that Jade and Kithara had pioneered. Jade stood on the observation deck, watching human and consortium. Children play together in the station's new gardens. The sight never failed to fill her with wonder. The children seemed to learn emotional resonance naturally, their laughter creating light patterns that danced through the crystalline trees. Her own transformation had stabilized, leaving her with permanent abilities to sense emotions and even Share simple thoughts with willing partners. You're thinking too loudly again, my love, came Kithra's melodious voice behind her. The ambassador approached with that flowing grace that still made Jade's heart skip, her crystalline skin displaying the warm golds and roses that had become her signature colors when she was happy. Jade turned, automatically reaching for Kithra's hand and feeling the familiar tingle of their enhanced connection. Even after months together, the touch sent pleasant shivers through her entire being. I was just thinking about how much has changed. When I first arrived here, I never imagined we'd end up creating a new form of galactic civilization. Skin shimmered with amusement. You humans always think in such grand terms. Simply fell in love, and showed others it was possible. She gestured toward the gardens where a human teenager was teaching a young consortium member how to grow earth plants using emotional resonance. Love has a way of spreading when people see its beauty. The past months had indeed been remarkable. News of their successful bonding had spread throughout both human and consortium space, inspiring similar connections between other individuals. More than diplomatic success, they had sparked a revolution in interspecies relationships. The rigid protocols that had governed galactic politics for millennia were giving way to something more organic and meaningful. Ambassador Kithara, Captain Phoenix, a familiar harmonic voice called. Elder Ziffin approached them with the measured dignity that marked the most senior members of the Consortium Council. Their crystalline form had aged over centuries too deep. Indigo and silver, patterns that spoke of vast wisdom and experience. The Council has reached its decision regarding your proposal. Jade felt Kithara's hand tighten in hers, sharing the ambassador's nervous anticipation through their bond. For weeks, they had been working on a proposal that would formalize the new relationship protocols they had developed, creating an official framework for interspecies bonding ceremonies. The consortium formally approves the establishment of the Harmony Protocols, Elder Ziffin announced, their skin brightening with approval. More significantly, we invite the Human Federation to establish permanent colonies within consortium space, with full rights and privileges of membership. The news sent shockwaves of joy through Jade that she immediately shared with Kithara. Through their connection, after centuries of isolation, humanity was finally being welcomed into the galactic community as equals. There is more, Elder Ziffin continued, their ancient eyes focusing on the joined hands of the two lovers. The Council has voted to recognize bonded partnerships like yours as a new category of diplomatic relationship. You would serve as the first official Harmony ambassadors, representing not just your individual species, but the potential for all beings to connect across the void. Kithra's response came through their mental link before she spoke aloud, filled with excitement and love. We accept, honored elder. It would be our greatest pleasure to help others find what we have discovered together. Excellent, Elder Ziffin replied. Your first assignment will be to establish a Harmony Center in the Andromeda approach, where 3 different species have been locked in territorial disputes for decades. If your methods can bring peace there, the galaxy will truly be transformed. As the elder departed, Jade and Kithara found themselves alone on the observation deck, the weight of their new responsibilities settling around them like a comfortable embrace. Through their bond, Jade could feel Kithara's determination mixed with excitement for the challenges ahead. Are you ready for this? Kithara asked, though through their connection she already knew the answer. Traveling to unknown regions, dealing with species that might not be as receptive as the consortium has been. Jade pulled her closer, marveling, as always, at how perfectly Kithara fit against her body. The ambassador's crystalline skin was warm and responsive, shifting to deeper shades of contentment as they embraced. With you, I'm ready for anything. Besides, we've already proven that love can bridge any gap. Their kiss was electric, literally, sending sparks of bioluminescent energy dancing across Kithara's skin. The physical connection had only grown stronger over time, their bodies learning to resonate together in ways that created pleasures beyond anything either species had experienced alone. Even this simple kiss sent waves of shared sensation through their nervous systems that left them both breathless. I have something to show you, Kithara whispered against Jade's lips, her skin now glowing with mysterious purpose. Something the healers have been helping me develop. She led Jade to their private chambers, a space they had designed together that combined human comfort with consortium beauty. Crystalline formations grew alongside Earth plants, creating a garden that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. It was here that they had spent countless hours exploring not just each other's bodies, but the deeper mysteries of their bonded consciousness. What the healers and I discovered, Cathara began, her skin cycling through colors Jade had never seen before, is that our bonding has created something unprecedented. We're not just connected to each other anymore. We've become a focal point for a new kind of cosmic consciousness. She gestured toward the room's center, where a new crystalline formation had grown over recent weeks. As Jade watched, the crystal began to pulse with warm light. And suddenly, she could feel it, a vast network of connected minds that spanned the galaxy. Every bonded pair that had formed since their ceremony, every being that had learned to open their emotional barriers, all of them linked in a web of understanding and love. We started something that's growing beyond anything we imagined, Cathara continued, her voice filled with wonder. Love, it seems, is not just an emotion, but a fundamental force of the universe, and we've learned how to harness it. Jade approached the crystal, feeling its energy resonating with her enhanced nervous system. Through it, she could sense the joy of newly bonded couples, the wonder of children learning to share emotions, the relief of warriors laying down arms because they could finally understand their enemies' hearts. It's beautiful, she breathed. We've created a network of empathy that spans the stars. Cathara moved to stand behind her, wrapping crystalline arms around Jade's waist and sending waves of loving warmth through their connection. And it's only the beginning, my beloved human. Imagine what the galaxy could become when every being learns to love as deeply and completely as we have. Future stretched before them, bright with possibilities. It would travel to distant worlds, teaching the arts of emotional resonance and deep bonding. They would help species that had warred for millennia learn to see each other as individuals worthy of love, rather than threats to be eliminated. Most importantly, they would continue growing their own love, exploring new depths of connection that pushed the boundaries of what was possible between two conscious beings. That night, as they made love with a passion that sent aurora-like patterns dancing across the chamber walls, Jade felt the profound truth of their destiny. They had become more than lovers, more than diplomats, more than representatives of their species. They had become the living proof that the universe was not cold and empty, but warm and full of infinite possibilities for connection. I love you, Cathara, of the luminous consortium, Jade whispered as waves of shared ecstasy left them both trembling in each other's arms. I love you beyond words, beyond species, beyond the boundaries of space and time. And I love you, Jade, Phoenix of Earth, Cathara replied, her skin blazing with colors that had no names but spoke directly to the soul. Together we will teach the galaxy that love is the only force strong enough to unite the stars. Outside their window, the cosmos stretched endlessly in all directions, no longer vast and intimidating, but full of worlds waiting to learn what they had discovered. Love had not just conquered the space between them, it had conquered space itself, creating bridges of understanding that would connect every corner of the galaxy. The age of isolation was ending, the age of harmony had begun, and at its heart burned the love between a human engineer who had learned to bear her soul and a crystalline being who had chosen individual passion over collective duty. Their love story had become the foundation for a new universe, one where every being could find the connection they desperately craved. In the depths of space, new ships launched daily, carrying Harmony ambassadors to distant worlds. Each carried with them the knowledge that love was not weakness, but strength, not limitation, but liberation, not the end of individual identity, but its glorious expansion into something greater than the sum of its parts. The human had undressed in front of the Galactic Council, and the universe would never be the same. What had begun as diplomatic necessity had become cosmic destiny, proving that sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquest, but from the courage to be vulnerable, to love completely, and to trust that the universe will love you back. Their story became legend, told on countless worlds to countless species, as proof that no distance was too great, no barrier too strong to prevent two hearts from finding each other across the infinite beauty of the stars. And in every telling, the message remained the same: love conquers all, even the cold emptiness of space, transforming it into a warm web of connection that binds every conscious being in the universe together in eternal harmony.